right, so we're going to go over our first off-season training for the University of Arizona women's hockey team. One of the main things that I saw throughout the season, since we didn't have time to do a full strength cycle, was the girls just need to get generally stronger. Obviously, hockey being a mainly lower body driven sport, we have to work on lower body strength, but we also have to work on upper body strength to be able to shoot the puck a little bit faster, lean into the sticks harder, pin people to the corners, clear battles in front of the net, all of those types of things. So just general strength is one of the most important things. Adding muscle onto women and just packing on the pounds, it doesn't elicit more of a powerful, like speed driven focus as well. So we have to ensure that we're getting more powerful, our balance is taken care of, we're getting more coordinated as a unit. With our team being mainly freshmen and mainly 18-year-olds, these are the things that we'll have to develop over time. 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road of consistent training and focus on these things is going to elicit the most change on the ice. So it's up to these women to be able to train and focus in on their training throughout the summer. For our first cycle, we are doing something called Wildcat Strong, and it is going to look something like this. Okay, so here's what it looks like just off the cuff and kind of like a main skeleton of the program, if you will. So this program works in waves. So we have wave one that is 3 weeks long. We call this wave the tens. We have wave two that's called the eights. It's also 3 weeks long. All of them are 3 weeks long. Then we go into our fives and into our final threes. Now, the main benefit of this program is that it will consistently check in on the ladies' ability to move weight and move weight consistently with volume. This isn't about hitting a 1 rep max and increasing your ability to move weight one time. We're not competing in powerlifting. We're not competing in Olympic weightlifting. We are simply trying to get stronger, faster, more powerful, more explosive on the ice. So this program is meant to start to develop those tendencies of being able to move weight for multiple repetitions, focusing mostly on that kind of like muscular endurance. So our main movements here are going to be the power clean, which you can see on day one, the back squat. Day three is more of a circuit type training where we're doing more interval work, speed work. Sometimes it is just kind of low intensity cardio, that kind of zone two work for about 30 to 40 minutes. Our day four focuses on our shoulder press or our vertical pressing ability. And then day five is deadlift. Now, intermixed in there, you're going to see supplementary lifts like the snatch, like the split jerk, those types of movements that require a lot of focus and a lot of technique work. Now, I'm not a strength and conditioning coach that focuses on like, okay, we have to be snatching, we have to be power cleaning because that is what is going to elicit power or speed or coordination. These lifts are meant to just be something that we can focus a little bit more of our technique on. And yes, they do supplement those areas of explosiveness and power, but they do take a lot of focus. I think a lot of strength and conditioning coaches just kind of bypass the difficulty of the actual movements, and they say like, oh, we have to be doing this because this is what we see in our training books. That's not necessarily true. So we are going to be utilizing these movements just as something to kind of like take a step back from our strength training and focus more on the technical capability of these lifts. At the end of each day, we will have kind of like a high intensity cardio focus just to keep things fresh, keep it fun, and get more movements in, more higher volume work at a higher intensity, just keep the lungs burning. So let's go into these days a little bit more, and we'll go kind of week to week to give you a better idea of what this is going to look like. So just like I said, we go in waves, but we also focus here on our phases. So weeks 1, 2, and 3 is known as the accumulation phase. We're going to take 1 minute rest in between sets. We're not going to a maximum weight, like I said, or even a maximum volume. We should be working at a weight where we can leave about 2 to 3 reps in the tank. We are coming off of a season here, so we don't have any relatively new 1 rep maxes. I also didn't see these girls lift over summer, so maybe their 1 rep max wasn't necessarily done to standard or done full range of motion. So I didn't want them working off of a number that was arbitrary in terms of what I'm looking for movement patterns. Not only are we working at percentages, but we are taking the percentages off 90%. So week one, we really aren't going off of any percentage. We're just kind of building in weight until I kind of am watching them and I'm like, okay, this looks to be about your 60%. Let's stay there. Or they can kind of go off of the leaving 2 to 3 reps in the tank. So with our power cleans, we rested 1 minute in between sets, giving enough time for the heart rate to come down, and also giving enough time to focus on the movement so it's done right and not done just fast to get it over with. Then we moved into our accessory work of some ring dips, some L sits, working on hip flexor strength, working on ab strength, those two things kind of working hand in hand together. And then we did some hill sprints, just 10-yard hill sprints. We did these on a treadmill because we didn't have a hill to move to relatively quickly out of the weight room. So we just did those on the treadmill. Our Metcon was about 20 minutes long, or our metabolic conditioning, getting the heart rate up, was about 20 minutes long with kind of some supplemental rest within there. Hockey players really only work 45 seconds to a minute and a half at a time, or they should be working at that. So adding in this rest to allow the heart rate to come down and kind of get that heart rate variability working in there is an important thing to do. Moving on to our day two. Again, this is still the accumulation phase. We have back squats, working our back squats at about 60%. Again, taking 1 minute rest in between our sets. Then we do some GHD sit-ups. Now, I only have them doing half reps, moving their body kind of parallel to the floor, or horizontal, if you will. And that will allow your abs and your hip flexors, being the main driver, to stop your body from going backwards and sitting the body back up, instead of just missing that eccentric component and just going all the way down into the GHD sit-up. We worked our back extensions. One of my players' biggest weaknesses is their back. Not only do they have weak backs, but they also are unable to move their backs as well as I'd like them to in terms of mobility. So we're working on that as well with the back extension work. We worked our snatch a little bit here. So we practiced the technique. Most of the girls are just working with PVC pipes or those 20-pound bars, just kind of getting the movement pattern down, getting their body working all together as one movement, as one kind of complete motion. Moving into our cardio day, you can see that it's very short interval works, working on the rower, doing some burpees, getting some rest in there as well to get the heart rate down in terms of allowing your body to recover from that 15-second sprint. Moving on to our day 4, we have our shoulder press. Again, working with that minute break in between. Then we supplement that pressing with a pulling motion of pull-ups. Now, generally speaking, women are technically pretty weak with the pull-up. We don't necessarily have strength in our back. We are heavier in our lower half than men are. So it is more challenging for the ladies to do pull-ups. What we do here to allow some modification, we do as many pull-ups as we can. So let's say most of the girls get 2 in a row and they can't get that 3rd, 4th, and 5th rep. Then we move to an inverted row to allow them to take a little bit of the body weight off and allow the angle to increase a little bit as well. And we do our med ball chest passes, working on some speed, some fast twitch fiber movement. This one is with a step, so we are allowing the whole body to create momentum of the med ball. We did some sled pulls, and this was with a rope. So we did hand over hand pulls, working some lat as well as some hand and grip strength. And then we did a longer Metcon here, a longer cardio here, but most of this was body weight. Again, focusing on kind of the hip flexors driving the body up, allowing the legs to get a little bit of the majority of the work as well. Moving into our last day, we deadlifted. We also worked on some split jerks. Now, instead of doing the full split jerk here, since it was day 1, we did something called a jerk drive, which you can see demonstrated here, where our back leg is set. We use that kind of as a piston. So we use that back leg as the dip and the drive, and then we're working to time the front foot stepping out with the bar locking out overhead. Again, this isn't trying to get them better at split jerking. This isn't the main mover of their power movements. It's mainly just a time to take a step back and try to get the body a little bit of work on some coordination and a little bit of neural drive as well. We did some accessory work with some walking lunges, some good mornings to work the posterior chain, and then we did some core work as well as some leg stuff intermixed in there. One of the main focuses here was this banded adductor pull off the rig. Adductors, groins, hamstrings, those were a big source of pain for my girls this year. Again, we didn't have much of a preseason in terms of working on preventative motions. So a lot of these girls have been dealing with issues in the past, all through their high school career, even some of my transfer students dealing with some hip flexor issues that have always been a problem for them. Now, if the hip flexors are wearing out, usually that shows me that it's an overworked or it's something where we're doing too much work on the hip flexors and not enough strengthening on the muscles around it, or even maybe mobility of that motion. So if we only have the ability to move the leg up and down into one specific area, if we can't move out at an angle or in at an angle, you're only fatiguing kind of one or two lines of tissue, and we don't want to do that. So a lot of the stuff that we'll work on this summer as well is incorporating some mobility components to allow these athletes to stop creating bad habits and also open up some more range of motion for them to work through. Now, I'm not going to go through every single movement here. We're just going to go by week basis. So as we move into week 2, we can see that this phase 2 is called intensification. These phases are going to repeat themselves. So week 1, week 2, week 3 are all different phases. And then week 4 goes back to phase 1. Week 5 goes back to phase 2. Going into phase 2 intensification, we now have a 90-second rest between our sets. We're still leaving about 1 to 2 reps in the tank, but our weights here have increased from 60% to 67.5%. So we're slightly going up in weight, and we're starting off in 5 reps, and then we're going down to 3 reps, but we're still sticking with that 10, the 10 rounds of our workouts. Moving into week 3, all of the lifts stay the same. We do have different accessory movements. This is our realization phase. This is what I call our test week. So as we look into the power clean here, we're going to do 5 reps at 50%, 3 reps at 60%, which is week 1 weight that we were working on. 1 rep a little bit higher than the percentages that we were working at in week 2. And then you're going to do as many reps in a row as you can at 75%. Now, once we hit that number, the ladies will put in however many reps they did here at this specific weight. And then next week, so for week 4, as I go into this, we have these equations to put in to any lower body focus movement and any upper body focus movement. So for lower body, I do call a power clean a lower body movement since the weight is driven with the legs. We take the amount of reps that they got for their AMRAPs at the 10s. We subtract 5 reps off of that. So let's say they got 15 reps. We subtract 5. So now we have 10. We multiply that by 2.5. Okay, so now we got 25. My math off the top of my head is not the greatest. Then we add the 10's working weight to that. So if I was working off 90 pounds as my 1 rep max, and now I'm adding 25 to that, that is my new working weight that I would change. And I would now take my percentages off of that working weight. Okay, so as we go up, what every 3 weeks we'll focus on is moving weight for a number of repetitions. So we're trying to move that weight for more and more volume, even though that weight gets heavier. And obviously, I expect less repetitions. We are slightly increasing the working weight, so our percentages are now taking off something a little bit larger. This is the best way that we can go about building in percentages, especially with this being the first percentage-based strength cycle that these ladies are going off of. We add in the front squat here of week 4. We still are doing our ring dips. We're still doing our L-sits. We're still doing our hill sprints, but now we're a little bit further along here. Oops. We're going to go into our day 2 of week 4, just so you guys can see how this is kind of associated. We're adding in these unweighted movements now as well. So we do our back squats. Not sure why that. We're now doing our back squats, and then we rack the bar and we do 8 unweighted jump squats. Then we take a minute break. Now, this is something that is going to allow the body to fatigue even more and work through that fatigue as we get tired. Now, we still do our sit-ups, still do our back extensions. We're still doing our snatch practice, but the repetitions are going down here. So what we're hoping for is a little bit more weight in that. Still using our Wednesdays as our cardio day. We move on to our day 5 of our phase 2, and then we are doing shoulder presses. We're trying to perform these every minute on the minute. So even though we're tired, we have less rest time here, with the percentage being slightly higher as well. And you can see that the reason this is called eights, or wave 2 is eights, we now only have 8 rounds here. Still working our push-ups. Our med ball throw is going to be at a different plane. So now we're focusing on vertical throws. We still have sled pulls, but this is going to be a little bit different, where sometimes we're sitting, sometimes we're pushing the sled, sometimes we're pulling the sled. So those will change on a weekly basis. And then our last thing here is our deadlifts. Still working our split jerks, still working our front rack, walking lunges, our good morning, and then again finishing with that circuit. So we'll come all the way down here to our final 3 weeks. We can see everything is basically the same here. Wave 4, we're working in threes. So we only are doing 3 repetitions, still doing ring deadlifts, still not doing L-sit holds, but now we're doing it at a different degree, where now we're working off parallettes, doing different things than our hill sprints. These are called flying 40s. So still working the ability to sprint, and then still finishing with that cardio work. At the end here, this is not a max out 1 repetition thing. We are now going to max repetitions at 90%. Now, if we recall, our percentages are slowly building as well. Our working weight is slowly building, as long as you're doing due diligence on ensuring that you're at the right weight and doing as many reps as you actually can, working to failure for those every 3 weeks, every 3rd week test week. We go into our last week, day 2. We'll still see our back squats here, a little bit of ab work, a little bit of push-ups, still snatching. Moving into day 4, still doing our shoulder presses. Now we're working at pull-ups off of rings, so a little bit different type of demand. Still working on our vertical throw, but again, that kind of repeats itself every 3 weeks, different plane throws. And then we throw our front squat in there that we started working on in our phase 2, in our wave 2. Moving on to day 4, we have our deadlifts, our split jerks, our pistol squats, and then finishing off with that circuit. So once we finish this 12-week cycle, we should have a good indication of how much weight these ladies can actually move. So we'll take the max amount of repetitions that they did at 90%, and then we're going to give them an estimated 1 rep max to work off of for the next week cycle. Most likely after this 12 weeks, they're going to be pretty fatigued. I like to give 2 deload weeks, just focusing on some speed work, some agility work, shooting pucks, stick handling, just kind of taking a little bit of time away from the barbell. We still will implement things like a back squat, like a bench press, like a deadlift, just to allow them to continue to move the weight, so they don't get completely out of shape off the barbell. But 2 weeks off is a good way to kind of allow the muscles to relax. And once we get back into the swing of things, we'll go over our secondary off-season training cycle for you guys to follow along.